Imagine waking up one morning to find your king taken away, your city occupied, and your country no longer your own, not after years of battle, but in just a matter of days. This is not just the story of a war, it's the story of how a kingdom fell, how a people lost their crown, and how silence was met with a fire that burned quietly for generations. The Third Anglo-Burmese War was the last in a series of 3 military conflicts between the British Empire and the Konbaung Dynasty of Burma. While the previous 2 wars had ended with partial British victories and territorial losses for Burma, this final conflict, in 1885, led to the complete downfall of the Burmese monarchy. By this time, the British had already annexed Lower Burma after the Second Anglo-Burmese War, and the remaining Upper Burma was under the rule of King Thibaw. Tensions had been building due to both political and economic reasons, particularly British concerns over French influence in the region and commercial disputes with British companies. The British viewed the Burmese monarchy, especially under King Thibaw, as unstable and potentially hostile to their colonial interests. They used a combination of diplomatic pressure and accusations against the Burmese court to justify military intervention. The actual war began in November 1885 and was marked by a rapid British advance. British forces met little resistance from the Burmese army, which was ill-equipped and poorly coordinated. Within just a few weeks, British troops entered Mandalay, the royal capital, and captured King Thibaw. The ease and speed with which the British succeeded demonstrated the significant imbalance in military strength and preparedness. The fall of Mandalay marked the end of Burma's sovereignty. The British declared the annexation of Upper Burma and made it a province of British India. This event formally ended the centuries-old Burmese monarchy and completed the British conquest of Burma. Although the actual war was brief, it carried profound consequences, transforming Burma from a once independent kingdom into a fully colonized territory. The Third Anglo-Burmese War thus stands as the concluding act of a series of confrontations that had steadily eroded Burmese independence. The Third Anglo-Burmese War of 1885 resulted in the complete annexation of Upper Burma by the British Empire, finalizing their control over the entire Burmese territory. Prior to this, the British had already taken over Lower Burma following the earlier conflicts. Upper Burma, under the rule of King Thibaw, remained the last bastion of the Konbaung Dynasty. After the swift British military campaign, which lasted less than a month, Mandalay, royal capital, was captured, and King Thibaw was arrested and exiled to India. With the fall of Mandalay, the British formally declared the end of Burmese sovereignty. On January 1, 1886, Upper Burma was officially annexed and merged with British India. This administrative decision erased the political independence of Burma and brought it under direct colonial governance. British civil and military officials were appointed to oversee the new province, and Burmese traditions, governance structures, and institutions were systematically dismantled or replaced with British systems. The annexation was not merely a change in leadership, it represented a deep transformation in every aspect of Burmese life. The monarchy, which had been a symbol of unity and cultural identity for centuries, was abolished. Religious institutions, particularly Buddhist monasteries, found themselves under scrutiny, as they had traditionally supported the monarchy. The people of Burma were now ruled by foreign administrators who often misunderstood or disregarded local customs and social hierarchies. The annexation also allowed the British to exploit Burma's natural resources more directly, including its rich teak forests and mineral wealth. Infrastructure such as railways and telegraph lines were developed, primarily to serve British commercial interests. Despite the lack of a large-scale resistance during the war, the annexation laid the foundation for future unrest, as many Burmese deeply resented the loss of their kingdom, their king, and their independence. King Thibaw was the last monarch of the Konbaung Dynasty and the final king of independent Burma. He ascended the throne in 1878 at a young age after the death of his father, King Thibaw. His reign was marked by political instability, court intrigues, and increasing pressure from European powers, particularly the British and the French. Thibaw's rise to power was influenced heavily by Queen Supayalot and her mother, who orchestrated the execution of rival princes to secure his position. These internal purges created fear and resentment within the royal court and weakened the monarchy's ability to govern effectively. Meanwhile, the British viewed Thibaw as inexperienced and susceptible to foreign manipulation, especially from France, which had begun expanding its presence in neighboring Indochina. The British used the perceived threat of a French-Burmese alliance and a commercial dispute involving the Bombay-Burma Trading Corporation as pretexts to justify intervention. When British troops advanced into Upper Burma in November 1885, King Thibaw's forces were unable to mount effective resistance. The Royal Army, poorly equipped and led, quickly collapsed under British pressure. As British forces marched into Mandalay, King Thibaw and his court awaited their fate in the royal palace. He surrendered without a fight and was captured along with Queen Supayalot and their immediate family. The royal family was then exiled to Ratnagiri in western India, where Thibaw lived in quiet isolation for the rest of his life. His exile was symbolic, meant to show the end of the Burmese monarchy and discourage any restoration attempts. Thibaw's downfall marked a profound turning point in Burmese history. The monarchy, which had been the central institution of Burmese political and spiritual life, was dismantled. His deposition not only ended centuries of dynastic rule, but also dealt a psychological blow to the Burmese people, who saw their cultural identity and sovereignty vanish overnight. One of the key underlying causes of the Third Anglo-Burmese War was economic in nature, particularly involving tensions between the Burmese monarchy and British commercial interests. At the center of this tension was the Bombay-Burma Trading Corporation, a powerful British company involved in the lucrative teak timber industry in Upper Burma. This company had extensive operations in the region and relied heavily on contracts granted by the Burmese royal court. Disputes arose over taxation, contractual obligations, and the treatment of British commercial representatives. The Burmese government, asserting its sovereignty, imposed fines on the company for alleged violations of Burmese law. In response, the British government interpreted these actions as unjust and hostile toward British business. The situation escalated quickly, as British authorities used the conflict as a justification for military intervention, claiming they were defending the rights of British subjects. Alongside these commercial grievances, the British were increasingly anxious about potential French influence in Burma. The Burmese court had started communicating with French representatives, and there were rumors that King Thibaw was seeking to form an alliance with France. The British viewed any French expansion in Southeast Asia as a direct threat to their dominance in India. This combination of economic disputes and geopolitical fears gave the British an excuse to frame their intervention as both the defense of commercial rights and a strategic necessity. While the public narrative emphasized justice and order, the deeper motive was imperial expansion. By portraying King Thibaw as an incompetent and anti-British ruler, the British government built political support for military action back home. The swift nature of the campaign suggests that the invasion had been carefully planned in advance, with the commercial and diplomatic disputes serving as convenient triggers. Thus, the war was not simply a reaction to a single event, but the result of long-standing British ambitions in the region. The British military campaign during the Third Anglo-Burmese War was remarkably swift and efficient, showcasing the vast disparity in strength, strategy, and resources between the two sides. The invasion began on November 14, 1885, under the command of General Harry Prendergast. British forces, consisting of well-trained troops with superior weapons and naval support, advanced up the Irrawaddy River toward Mandalay. Their plan was to reach the capital quickly and avoid a prolonged conflict. The Burmese army, in contrast, was poorly organized, inadequately armed, and lacked a unified command structure. Many of their weapons were outdated, and morale among the soldiers was low due to internal court instability and lack of clear leadership. As a result, resistance to the British advance was weak and sporadic. Skirmishes occurred along the way, but they posed no serious challenge to the advancing British columns. Within just 2 weeks, the British reached Mandalay. On November 28, they entered the city without encountering significant resistance. King Thibaw, aware of the hopeless situation, chose to surrender rather than risk the destruction of the capital or mass casualties among his people. He and his royal family were taken into custody and later exiled. The speed of the campaign surprised even British observers, many of whom had expected stronger opposition. The British forces suffered minimal casualties and achieved their objectives with remarkable efficiency. The rapid success was due in part to superior military logistics, river transport, and modern firearms, which included rifles and artillery far more advanced than anything possessed by the Burmese defenders. The fall of Mandalay marked the end of the war, and soon after, the British formally annexed Upper Burma. Though the fighting ended quickly, the deeper implications of this swift conquest would reverberate through Burma for years to come, particularly in the form of widespread post-war resistance. Although the Third Anglo-Burmese War was brief, and the British achieved a rapid military victory, the aftermath was marked by widespread unrest and resistance across the country. The Burmese people, particularly in rural and mountainous regions, did not accept the sudden loss of their king and the annexation of their homeland without a struggle. After the fall of Mandalay and the formal declaration of British rule in January 1886, numerous uprisings and acts of armed resistance erupted throughout Upper Burma. Former soldiers, disbanded royal officials, monks, and local leaders became the backbone of this resistance, often organizing guerrilla-style attacks on British outposts and convoys. These groups were known as dacoits by the British, though many were viewed by locals as freedom fighters defending Burmese independence and cultural identity. The resistance was decentralized and often uncoordinated, but it posed a serious challenge to British authority for several years. The terrain of Burma, with its dense forests, rivers, and remote villages, favored guerrilla tactics and made it difficult for the British to maintain control outside major towns and roads. In response, the British conducted harsh counterinsurgency campaigns, employing collective punishment, burning villages suspected of harboring rebels, and disarming entire communities. Thousands of British and Indian troops were stationed across the country to suppress the resistance, and martial law was implemented in many areas. Despite the brutal measures, small-scale rebellion persisted into the 1890s. Fueled by local resentment and religious nationalist sentiments, the British sought to stabilize their rule by establishing administrative reforms, building infrastructure, and introducing Western-style education. But these efforts often deepened local tensions rather than easing them. The resistance to British rule after the war revealed that the conquest of Burma was not merely a military operation, but a cultural and psychological battle as well. The Burmese people's attachment to their monarchy, religion, and traditions made colonial rule deeply unpopular and laid the foundation for later independence movements in the 20th century. In the end, the Third Anglo-Burmese War was more than just a brief military conflict. It was a turning point that reshaped the destiny of an entire nation. In a matter of weeks, a proud and ancient monarchy was dismantled, its last king exiled, and its people placed under foreign rule. Though the British claimed victory with speed and precision, the heart of Burma did not surrender so easily. Resistance simmered in the jungles, in the villages, and in the souls of those who remembered their freedom. The war may have ended in 1885, but its legacy lived in the struggle, in the silence, and eventually, in the voice of a people who would one day rise again to reclaim their homeland.